The entire transportation industry in the United States is essentially powered by one thing: oil. From cars and other modes of personal transportation to buses and airplanes, nearly everything runs off of some form of oil. According to Lester Brown in his book Plan B 4.0, 60% of that oil is imported, much of it coming from unstable areas of the world. The implications here are obvious. According to fueleconomy.gov, oil price manipulation by OPEC has cost our economy dearly, about $1.9 trillion from 2004 to 2008, and each major shock was followed by a recession. A lot of that oil goes to the production of gasoline to fuel America's automobiles. In fact, according to the Energy Information Association, in 2007, Americans used approximately 1.4 billion gallons of gas. That much gasoline obviously requires a lot of oil and is the primary reason for our so-called addiction to oil in this country. In 2008, gas prices rose dramatically, which forced Americans to rethink some of their driving habits. And the effects of this led to changes for oil and gas companies as well as the automobile industry as a whole. Before we get into the complexities of these changes, let's start in the beginning. When Henry Ford designed the Model T, he attempted to make a vehicle affordable enough for the common man. This was in part because the car had become a symbol of success in the country. Car ownership became a quintessential part of the American dream. That idea has held through to today. Cars and other personal vehicles constitute the largest mode of transportation for individuals on a daily basis. In fact, according to Lester Brown, 88% of the labor force travels to work by car each day. As previously mentioned, throughout this past century, owning a car has become synonymous with the idea of the American dream. The desire for material wealth is also part of that dream, and those two aspects can be seen merging in the recent years with the popularity of the sport utility vehicle. Their popularity also contributes to the oil addiction that we face. Take this Hummer H2 for instance. In 2003, it weighed so much that the EPA didn't require mileage estimates on it. However, Motor Trend and Car and Driver both saw mileages in the 10 to 12 miles per gallon range. In comparison, a Honda Civic from 2003 saw about 35 miles per gallon. With the increase in gas prices in recent years and growing environmental concern among Americans, SUV sales have started to decline. The increase in oil prices, environmental concern, and other issues already mentioned have led to the exploration and development of possible solutions to this problem. One example of this is the development of biofuels, specifically corn-based ethanol. According to the American Coalition for Ethanol, the fuel is a clean-burning, high-octane motor fuel made from renewable sources. Ethanol has many benefits, and the ACE says that using just a 10% blend of ethanol reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 12 to 19%. On the flip side, ethanol has become the source of much controversy because of the negative impacts it has on the world food supply. In 2004, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, the 4 billion gallons of ethanol produced came from 13% of the U.S. corn crop. That number has gone up since then and contributes to the argument of food versus fuel that Lester Brown talks about. According to Brown, the grain required to fill one SUV's gas tank could feed one person for an entire year. And if the U.S. converted its entire grain harvest to ethanol, it would only supply 18% of the country's automotive fuel needs. Another solution for the auto industry is the hybrid or full electric vehicle. Hybrid vehicles already on the market, like the Toyota Prius, get an average of 50 miles per gallon, which is much higher than normal gasoline-powered cars. Brown says that the United States could cut its gasoline use in half by converting the whole vehicle fleet to hybrids. Full-on electric vehicles are also a major player in the future of the auto industry. Chevrolet plans on unveiling the Volt in 2011, which should get an estimated 150 miles per gallon. And other companies plan on unveiling similar all-electric vehicles soon. Aside from the environmental benefits, the price of filling up an electric vehicle is much less than that of a gas vehicle. There is also another side to electric vehicles. Aside from their high initial price, according to americaspower.org, half of the country's electricity comes from coal-fired power plants. Coal is considered to be one of the dirtier forms of energy. According to Brown, it is the most damaging to human health, with an estimated 3 million people per year dying from breathing air polluted by coal. It is also the leading source of mercury pollution. If electric vehicles are to replace gas-powered vehicles, the demand for electricity would inevitably go up, which could lead to more coal-fired power plants being built. We can see that there are both positives and negatives regarding the production of alternative fuel vehicles. One aspect of the alternative fuel idea is that instead of one previously mentioned alternatives completely replacing the modern-day gasoline-powered car, a wide variety of new energy-efficient technologies would become available to the consumer, and automakers would not focus on just one form of automobile, but many. This would create a huge influx of new, technologically advanced vehicles, keeping the automobile industry alive, reducing our dependence on foreign oil, and in the process helping the environment and making the auto industry more sustainable. At the same time, the issue of sustainability becomes important. While the masses of new, fuel-efficient, and environmentally conscious vehicles are being produced and consumers are replacing inefficient gasoline vehicles with them, cars are still being mass-produced in enormous, energy-inefficient factories. Derek Jensen makes this argument in his book, What We Leave Behind, when he writes of installing a green roof on a truck factory and calling it sustainable. He points out that while the building itself may be more efficient, the factory still produces inefficient vehicles. This theory works the opposite in this case, and it hasn't even touched on the process of disposing of old vehicles. In 2009, the government implemented the Cash for Clunkers program. Officially titled the Car Allowance Rebate Program, the CARS program offered people a rebate of up to $4,500 on a new, fuel-efficient vehicle if they traded in their old clunker. This program achieved objectives set out by Congress to increase auto sales and aid the environment, according to the program's website. In a few weeks of sales, nearly 680,000 older vehicles were replaced by new, more fuel-efficient ones. An ABC News article stated that the sale of the new vehicles would save 270 gallons of gas per car per year. The flip side to the idea of replacing old, less fuel-efficient vehicles for brand new ones is that many people gave up vehicles that were still in good working order. In fact, criteria for the program said that the vehicle actually had to be drivable. These vehicles were then crushed and shredded after having their engines destroyed and could not be resold. While more fuel-efficient vehicles may be on the road, this program could be seen as a waste of perfectly good vehicles, which would go against any mantra of recycling and reusing vehicles. Do the benefits of increased fuel efficiency outweigh the total cost from start to finish of producing an entirely new vehicle rather than keeping an older one that works? There are other approaches in confronting the problems facing the transportation and automobile industries in the U.S. Reducing our dependence on foreign oil and helping the environment may be as easy as riding a bike. According to Brown, bikes alleviate congestion, lower air pollution, reduce obesity, increase physical fitness, don't emit anything, and are cheap. However, one issue that confronts the use of bicycles as a means of transportation is the way that the transportation infrastructure is in this country. Roads and highways are for the most part not bike-friendly, as they weren't designed for them in mind. As the number of bicyclists increase, so in turn will the number of bicycle-related deaths. The idea of bicycles replacing cars as modes of transportation also jeopardizes the entire automotive industry, which is a huge force in the U.S. economy. Since the beginning of the decade, total spending on new vehicles accounted for 4% of the country's GDP. The auto industry also employs some 2.9 million people. One of the biggest complexities in this issue of lessening our dependence on foreign oil and improving the environment is the effect that it will have on the auto industry, and in turn, on the U.S. economy as a whole.